quite intense before, they would think, I'd rather the struggle to remove this than the struggle of enduring it. That's true of most people most of the time. Alas, we're not a species programmed utterly for liberty. We have it in us innately, but we have other instincts too, such as for a quiet life, and for some people, security, preferable to liberty. Masochism is not just a perversion, in other words. Some people need to be told, have a need to be told what to do, to have an authority in which they can repose their entire trust. And they will tend to invest this authority, since they're relying upon it so much, with great qualities. Otherwise, they won't want to be saying, I'm subject to something arbitrary or temporary or trivial. These are all natural things, but they are very untrustworthy. They break down repeatedly. And they force us to take responsibility.
If most people have no great yearning for freedom, does that make liberation struggles defunct?
It doesn't make them defunct, but it explains why they're so rare and so unsatisfactory. But I think the instinct to be free is as strong as the instinct for security or for order, or the other euphemisms that we give to the status quo. Yes, we have just as strong a feeling. It's or at least it's just as much innate in us. It is the spur to innovation and to discovery and to exploration and so forth. But it's not found in all people at all times. If it were, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, I was just going to say that you mentioned earlier that you would still see Marxism as a sort of legitimate framework, and we know there's no point as going over the sort of reasons why you've distanced yourself from other people, ostensibly of the left. But I'd be interested to hear why you say you don't no longer describe yourself as a socialist.
Well, the Marxist analysis of history, or if you like, the materialist conception of history and society, is, if it has any claim at all to grandeur, objective. It's not weighted by any sectarian or class or any other sort of interest. It's scrupulously detached. In other words, the socialist element of it is prescriptive to begin with. I remember, I think it was Peregrine Worsthorne, certainly one of the British Tory polemicists, writing once that he himself was a Marxist because he quite understood about the class struggle. He just wanted the other side to win it. That's just the easiest way of putting it. And there is no way that any Marxist could say he'd drawn the wrong conclusion from the study of the first three books of Capital, or the 18th Brumaire. There's nothing preventing you from it. That's all I mean. Socialist principles are essentially ethical. Their claim is, or was, that they would be more efficient, that in some sense they're inevitable, they are the product of pre-existing relations of production and so forth, and are bodied forth by them almost, but not quite necessarily, because there is still the moral element that says it would be more just. Now, these claims in practice have been found to be very unsatisfactory. Mm-hmm. You'd have to be an idealist in the philosophical sense to go on believing them. You couldn't say that the study of the evolution of human society, of capitalist society, in any sense necessitated a socialist conclusion. I don't believe that can be said anymore. It fell away from me in that way. The consequences of concluding that are enormous, because once you've decided, well, there isn't a socialist alternative, not even an alternative critique, let alone movement, or potentially different society, then it's the proof, as has been found before, that you can't just be a little bit heretical.
So having decided that socialism is not the answer, I mean, there's a trend identified in your books on Paine and Jefferson, and more broadly seems to be happening among a lot of the liberal left, to go back even further, back to the Enlightenment. Do you think this is an important kind of statement of first principles that's needed?
Yes, because I would still like to think of myself as in some way not a counter-revolutionary. Never mind whether that's necessary for me or not. I mean, I think you know what I mean. So when I say that the 1776 revolution is a revolution whose principles are still alive and can be emulated usefully and practically without damage, I'm making quite a large claim, but I think it's true. And it would be, I don't want to denigrate the revolution of 1789, but I don't think it was an advance on, or indeed the Cromwellian revolution. But the succeeding, the utopian one, the ones that believed that it was possible to make humanity into essentially a new shape, the human personality into a new form, have been a little bit more than disproved, and I think a little bit more than discredited.
And in the final analysis, has there been any thing that has been really gained from the socialist revolutions of the 20th century?
Oh yes, I think so. I mean, I do. The idea of globalization, for example, the realization that we are, in fact, and have for quite a long time been part of the global economy, and that what happens to someone in Namibia or Latvia is happening in my own country, because these people are in my society, as I am in theirs. It's of great importance. The realization of the limits of the nation state, the realization that imperialism is short-lived, that monarchy and religion are very temporary and ramshackle improvisations. Yeah, all of these things are very well worth having. Yeah. The abolition of the idea of racial or ethnic difference. Well, I think all of these things can be said to be part of the credit of the socialist movement.
You've got a new book coming out. God is Not Great, it's called. The Case Against Religion, it's subtitled. So, tell us why. Tell us about the genesis of the book. One word to choose, perhaps.
Well, the book is being written about by others, and in a way that at first made me a little, apprehensive, and then I realised made me glad. It's being written about as part of a general counterstroke to religiosity associated with the names of Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Denny. All of these, by the way, names with whom anyone should be proud to be associated, no matter what their view might be. Now, of course, I would rather have been the first one, but since I'm not going to be, I've decided that I think a rising tide lifts all boats, and actually believe that may be the case. That you can now find, even in the supposedly irredeemably religion-soaked United States, the presentation of arguments in mainstream magazines as if, okay, the fight is now on about whether religion is ethical, whether it's useful, whether it's true. But this is an impressive moment to be taking part in, and I'm very proud to play a small part in, so to speak, keeping that thought alive.
But what seems interesting
feeding fuel into that flame.
What's interesting about that, though, is it's almost not like this is the moment for that, because Dawkins' book particularly, and Sam Harris's book before that as well, have been very much attacked. I mean, this is almost like an echo. We've been talking about, the sort of the liberal intelligentsia and their sort of failure to get to grips with other things that we're concerned with. It seems to be that people are almost saying, oh, you can't do this, it's embarrassing, you can't attack religion in this way. And Dawkins' book was savage in a lot of quarters that you would have expected to have been on side.
Yes, well, I think a lot of people want to show that they understand the religious pulse. And you'll be the judge of this, not I, but in my book, you may conclude that I'm writing as if I understand why people are religious, and not completely without sympathy for it, as Marx did. In fact, I don't begin, but I quite early on introduce something that I've done once or twice before, but at length, to say that one of the great misrepresentations of all quotation is the belief that Marx referred to religion as the opium of the people, or dismissed it as such. And I quote, I can do it for you now, almost word for word, what he in fact said from his introduction to the critique of Hegel's philosophy of right, where he says religion is the heart of the heartless world, and the sigh of the oppressed creature, and the spirit of the spiritless situation, and the opiate of the people, adding that the demand to give up illusions is the demand to give up, or to overcome, the condition that requires illusions, and concluding that criticism has plucked the flowers from the chain, not so that men may wear the chain without consolation, but so that they may break the chain and cull the living flower. But that's as different from what people think, Marx said, as it could be. It also, by the way, shows what a serious thinker he was. I'm not always completely true to this in my book, because occasionally I refer with complete contempt to certain religious affectations and impostures, but I think that compared to Richard, certainly, Dawkins, I have perhaps a little more empathy with what is evidently a problem that humanity can't solve.
Well, that's,
in other words, I believe religion is ineradicable.
It's a miscategorisation of Richard Dawkins' book as well, I think, but that's certainly been the message that's been out in sort of reviews, that he's basically attacking anybody who has a religious belief as being stupid, basically.
Yes, which I'm sometimes tempted to do myself, and I think he also over-relies probably